So the Panda team showed up to get him, and they got him all hooked up in this crazy big glass box. I don't think it was made out of glass. It's probably like some sort of plastic. But it was just this clear giant box just connected to everything. They got him all hooked up. They brought him in the room to see me. Of course, you don't ever want to see your newborn baby that you barely even got to look at like that, and being told that he was being taken away from you. Anyways, that was horrible. At that point, I had finally gotten stitched up, and I had lost so much blood that I had to get a blood transfusion there before I was able to get transferred to OHSU with him. Of course, he was being transferred to the NICU, so I would be transferred to just the maternity ward. So we would still be in separate rooms, but at least in the same hospital. So before I was able to be transferred, I had to get a blood transfusion. So we were told that he would probably be eating when he got to OHSU. So I pumped, and my husband drove to Portland to bring my breast milk to him. But when he got to Portland, he was told that the baby would not be able to eat yet because he, I guess because he lost so much blood. The blood that he did have left was tested, and it was acidic, I believe is how they said. And it was toxic to his body, so he needed to be cooled. So because he had to be cooled, he wouldn't be able to eat or be held or anything like that. Of course, we would still be able to see him and reach over and touch his hand. Although I was not able to see him until probably around midnight or 1 in the morning that night, because I was transferred to OHSU after my first blood transfusion in the hospital here. And by the time I got there, I was still too weak, so they had to give me another blood transfusion. And because of the injuries that I sustained, I wasn't able to actually sit up yet, and so they wouldn't be able to wheel me in a bed in the NICU, so they had to wait until, 1, I was done with the blood transfusion, and 2, until I could at least sit up in a wheelchair so someone can wheel me in a wheelchair into the NICU. So I spent the whole day crying in the hospital bed because I couldn't see him and I couldn't be there, and I was just told by my husband what they were doing to him. And they, like I said, he had to be cooled. They had to connect him to an EEG, so he had all these cables on his head. They had a CPAP connected to his face so that he would be able to breathe. And of course he had IVs. I believe that they ended up having to do IVs on both his hands. He had IVs through his umbilical cord. Because the issue was, or part of the issue was his blood, he had to be blood tested every few hours. So he had a bunch of pokes on his heels. Just all of that, and not being able to see him, that sucked. So my body was finally strong enough to get on a wheelchair, like I said, around midnight or 1. My brother spent the night with me at the hospital that first night, and so he came down with me to see Arrow for the first time. And as much as it was amazing to see him, it was also just really hard because he was hooked up to a bunch of stuff, and he was in a diaper and was being cooled, which meant that he was under this like blanket kind of that controls his body temperature, and he was so cold and purple. So he ended up being cooled for 72 hours, and then after the 72 hours they still kept the EEG on his head for another 24 hours to make sure that they were monitoring and make sure that he wouldn't get or wouldn't have seizures. And thankfully he didn't at all. So good. And he had, of course, like I said, a bunch of other exams. He had blood tests every few hours the whole time that he was there. Slowly, some of the IV started coming off. The IV on his belly button stayed until day 5, which is when I finally was able to feed him. And day 5 was also the first time that I was able to hold him.
Okay, Arrow, smile.
He's totally capable of doing that.
Say cheese, Arrow. What do you think, Hannah? Did you wait long enough?
Too long.
It was, such a bittersweet moment of being able to hold my baby finally, but he's still hooked up to all this stuff, and at that point I wasn't really sure like when we would even be released, or the uncertainty of what had really happened to him. So anyways, still one of the best moments of my life when he finally was able to just be in my arms after like that whole 5 days of just suffering and watching him suffer. So after he got warmed up and the EEG came off and we were able to feed him and we were able to hold him and all of that good stuff, they obviously still wanted to monitor him and do further testing before they would allow him to go home. They needed to make sure that he was eating and gaining weight. And they did a brain MRI and I actually don't really even know what else. But anyways, they did all their final testing and we were finally released 7 days after he was born. So September 11th, 2019, he was finally released. Best day ever. They told us that even though he looked in bad shape when he first came in, that he was just a miracle baby because he made it through all of that untouched. He passed every test. He ate, like started eating like perfectly right away. He responded to everything perfectly right away. All of his vitals and reflexes and everything are just perfect. All of the nurses and doctors and neurologists and everyone that we talked to told me that he literally was just a miracle, how awesome and fast and how perfect he was doing. I could not be more grateful because it really could have been so bad and it wasn't. I mean, it was. That whole week was the most just the craziest like emotional roller coaster of my life. I felt so angry and so happy that he was here and so happy that he was doing well and so sad for everything that he went through and scared because I wasn't sure like what really was gonna happen. Anyways, just every emotion that you could possibly ever feel. And then on top of it, I was like healing myself too, which was really hard. Thankfully, we were able to stay at the Ronald McDonald House in Portland, which was such a blessing because I was able to be there and be able to see him and like just wake up and go straight to him and be really close after I was discharged from the hospital. So that was a blessing, and I really want to give a special thanks and a special shout out to the Ronald McDonald House. And if any of you can donate, like please do. It is so amazing what they do for families who have children in the NICU, and what they did for us. I could never really repay it. So thank you. And thank you to the OHSU nurses and doctors and everybody that took care of him, because really, and also the nurses and doctors and my midwife at the hospital here where he was born. Thank you, thank you, thank you, because it was thank you to their fast acting that he is perfect, that he healed, and that he got exactly the care that he needed to at the time that he needed it, so that he wouldn't have any brain damage, so that he wouldn't have any seizures, so that he wouldn't have any developmental issues. So thank you. It was your fast acting that saved his life and mine. But his is more important. So anyways, that's the end of my video. Oh my gosh, what a mess. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more from us. We have a lot more fun content and videos, and nothing like this anymore because I am done being emotional. So it's all good things from here on out. Please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up for my little baby Arrow and his life and just how awesome he is. And leave me a comment down below, either telling me about your birth story or giving Arrow a little congratulations for being such a little badass and making it through. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.